Hello, one of the assignments this week is talking about summation notation. And if you look on the screen here on the left-hand side, this is the worksheet that you have to work through. There's a brief explanation about summation notation at the top, and then there are these 6 problems down here. And I know some people, you can read these words and it just doesn't help a whole lot. So I wanted to have a video here where I kind of talk through these problems and how to do it, okay? So what the summation notation means is you can kind of think of it as a big plus sign in a sense, okay? So if you're looking at this guy right here, okay, this E looking guy, that's the summation symbol, okay? And basically below the summation, it will say I equals a number. And then on the top of the summation notation, there will be a final number, okay? The number at the bottom is your initial number that you're going to plug in, and the number at the top will be the final number, okay? Inside here, after the summation notation, there will be a variable or a number. You can look at these examples down here, okay? Here it says I squared, here it says the square root of k. Usually it's something involving a variable, okay? And what you have to do is you have to start with the initial number that they give you underneath the summation symbol. You plug it in and you write down what you get. Once you get that, you move on to the next number, okay? So let's kind of walk through this example that they give you up here. So on the right-hand side of the screen, I'm going to write it. So we have let me get my pen. We have the summation beginning with a value of 3, ending at a value of 9 of I. So what does this mean? Okay, half the battle in statistics is to not freak out with the notation that you're given. Okay, so what does this mean? Basically, it means take whatever follows the summation, which in this case is just I, and one at a time you're going to plug in the number that you start with all the way up to the number that you end with. So in this case, the first value that you're going to plug in is 3. So I'm going to plug in a 3. This is a variable. You're going to plug in a 3 for I. So in that case, you have a 3. So that was my initial number that I plugged in. So now I go 1 up. So I start at 3, my next number is 4. So now I'm going to plug in a 4 here. The next number is a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm going to plug them in one at a time. Okay, and then what that summation means, I mentioned this earlier, is that summation is kind of like a big old plus sign. It means plug in these values one at a time, list them, and then add them all up together. So between each one of these numbers, I'm going to put those plus signs, okay? So your final answer would be 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9. And when you add those all up together, I'm getting a 42. Okay, so your final answers that you'll be looking for, if you kind of look at the answer key down here for these 6 problems, your final answers are a final number. Okay, to get the final number, you have to plug in the values that they tell you one at a time and then add them all up. Okay, so just kind of briefly looking at these examples here. Like let's look at number 2 because it's a little messier. So this is the summation beginning at 4 and ending at 7 of the square root of your variable, which in this case happens to be k, but it doesn't really matter. So first you're going to plug in a 4, so you'd have the square root of 4. Plus, then you'd plug in a 5, so the square root of 5. Plus the square root of 6, plus the square root of 7, and you would stop there. You don't go any higher than 7 because that's your final number that they list here. Okay. Sometimes you're going to be able to get a nice whole number. Sometimes it's going to be decimals. Sometimes it's going to be square roots. And in looking at number 2, your final answer, they wrote it as a decimal here. okay? So hopefully that gives you a little bit better idea of how to approach these problems. Again, the main idea is plug in your initial number, and then the next number, the next number, the next number, all the way up to your final number. Write down at each stage what you get, and then add them all together. Okay, so don't get bogged down by the notation. I know it can look pretty ugly, okay, but if you look at the end of your sheet, these are some things that we're going to be using in statistics, okay? They look messy. They look messy. So first step in understanding these is we need to know what this summation symbol means, and that's why we're reviewing that in 0926. All right, good luck. I hope that helps you out. If you're still having trouble with these, please let me know.